We've covered killers of many sorts on this channel, from fathers turned bloodthirsty to teens plotting someone's demise. It's clear that killers come from all walks of life, and today's case proves that there are no exceptions to the rule. Kids can be creepy, this is absolutely true, and while their beady eyes and 1,000-yard stare can give anyone a fright, the general consensus is that they're usually harmless. Weird, but harmless. And yet, in 2006, a young and unnerving child would show otherwise, proving that your concern on how the creepy kid across the street keeps looking at you might not be entirely uncalled for. Amarjeet Sada was only 8 years old when whatever demon lay within him awakened, as this little boy would turn away from the usual playing games in favour of gore and screams. And as time went on, his joy in both would cause a streak of terror across the country of India, as so many were left to sit in awe of how an 8-year-old boy could commit such atrocities. To understand what we're dealing with, we need to look at who we're dealing with. Amarjeet Sada was born in 1998 in Bihar, India. A child of labourers, Sada grew up in a very poor environment, with financial struggles bearing down on his family. Whether or not he was old enough for this to contribute to his mental state is anyone's guess, but already this young man was off to a bad start in life. Sada grew up with a younger sister born 7 months after himself. When Sada was young, he displayed various antisocial behaviours, ranging from a sullen quietness about him all the way to avoiding people in their entirety by isolating himself at any opportunity presented to him. It would not be long before Sada's family would expand via members of his extended family, such as his aunt and his cousin. The aunt would seek work in the city, and after acquiring a position, would leave her child under the watch of Sada's family in order to ensure the child's safety. This would prove to be a grave mistake, as Sada would one day begin what would end as a bloodbath in this very moment. On one fateful day, Sada would be left alone with his infant cousin and sister due to his aunt working at the time and his mother shopping for vegetables. No one could have guessed what would transpire at the hands of Sada, as right at that very moment Sada would begin to harm his infant cousin, first by pinching and slapping him in order to provoke the child. This would then lead to more brutal acts, such as direct punches to the infant's skull. This would end with Sada proceeding to stop the child from breathing via direct strangulation. His scheme would not end here, as he would attempt to cover his tracks and eradicate evidence of his hand in his cousin's demise by taking the infant's body to a forest nearby, burying it along with any innocence Sada once had. Sada would soon confess to his parents his role in the disappearance and now confirmed death of his 6-month-old cousin. While Sada received physical punishment in the form of immense beatings, the parents would decide, either out of shame or out of love and concern for their son, that they would cover up Sada's role in this horrid act. They would lie to the mother of the deceased child, denying that Sada was involved in any way, and for a while the aunt believed it. It would not be long before Sada would take his second victim, his infant sister. As if the blood of one innocent child wasn't enough, Sada hungered for more. He waited patiently, acting on his impulse the moment his parents were asleep, as he would proceed to take his sister's life in the same method he had taken his cousin's, strangulation. He wrapped his hands around her small throat, stopping her breathing and ending her life, all while his parents were sound asleep, expecting to wake up to their little girl. How his parents reacted is unknown, however. The fact that they had proceeded to cover up the killing as well speaks volumes on how Sada's parents were only enabling him, with relatives later remarking that these ongoing murders were considered by the family to be family issues and would be kept under wraps. These incidents were left in the dark and would have fallen between the cracks of justice if not for Sada's third killing, his final action. Those whom Sada once targeted, that being his family, were no longer his prey, as he had now decided to broaden his horizons and take the life of a child who was not related to him. This occurred when a mother left her child unattended at a primary school merely for a few seconds. The woman's daughter would quickly be taken by Sada, as he then proceeded to strangle the infant, as well as impact her brain several times with a brick, He admitted this to the mother, leading to the entire local community to search for the child's body. When they found her, Sada was taken into custody. His reaction was something ripped from a nightmare. As Sada was interrogated for what he had done, the truth would come out for all to know, that Sada had more than one notch on his belt. Sada would admit to the authorities that this was not his first time taking a life, as he gave in detail what he had done to his relatives, as well as what had happened today entirely. While admitting his monstrous misdeeds, he wore an evil, haunting smile across his face. He showed no remorse for what he had done. Instead, he had enjoyed each act that he had committed. Notable psychologists in India at the time of the killings had deemed that Sada was a sadist who derived pleasure from inflicting injuries. In most of the stories we've covered, there has always been some form of justice at the end, some shred of good news after the haunting details of suffering, but you'll find nothing of the sort here. The court at the time had decided that not only was Sada ineligible for prison due to his young age, but that it could not entirely be determined if Sada was in his right mind at the time. With both details to consider, Sada would receive a slap on the wrist for his crimes against the infants, as he was sent to a children's home where he would live what would essentially be a normal life, just with slight restrictions. A lousy punishment for a loathsome monster. He would remain in this home until he turned 18. From there, he has changed his name and lives among the public. He's still out there, and we wouldn't know if we were even looking at him.